So the 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games will be held in Tokyo after the IOC chose it over rival bids from Istanbul and Madrid. There were celebrations across Japan's capital when the announcement came, as Rupert Wingfield-Hayes reports.
In Tokyo, they'd been waiting all night, the fatigue and tension showing in their faces. Finally, at 5:10, the moment of truth. By Japanese standards, this is wild emotion. Those who said Tokyo didn't really want the Olympics should meet these people. I believed and I waited, and now I'm happy, she says. I'm on top of the world, she says. Congratulations, Tokyo. In the damp early morning, the streets of Tokyo are a little more subdued. But here too, people are happy at the news. Yes, I saw the news this morning, she says. I'm surprised, but I'm really happy.
People may not be dancing in the streets in celebration here in Tokyo this morning. That's not the Japanese way. But bringing the Olympics back here to Tokyo was never really about excitement. It's about safety. It's about knowing that come 2020, the stadiums will all be ready and nothing disastrous will happen.
Or so everyone hopes. Japan now has 7 years to get the Fukushima nuclear disaster completely under control. The world will now be watching what goes on here even more closely. Tokyo already has much of the infrastructure needed for an Olympics: world-class trains and roads and clean air. Even so, Tokyo 2020 will not be cheap. The stunning new Olympic Stadium, designed by British architect Zaha Hadid, is expected to cost upwards of $1.5 billion. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, BBC News in Tokyo.
Well, while those celebrations continue, the decision-making hasn't ended yet for the International Olympic Committee. They must decide now what new sport will be admitted to the event. And in the running, wrestling, squash and a joint bid from baseball and softball. Well, let's go live to Buenos Aires. Our chief sports correspondent, Dan Rowan, is there. And what a night it was last night, Dan, but now looking to new sports.
Absolutely, and for these three sports, this is as big a deal and as important as it was for those three host cities yesterday. Years of campaigning, millions of pounds have been spent in some cases on the lobbying effort to try and persuade IOC members that their sport deserves to be included. It's a really a lot at stake for all three, but it is, I think, in a way that the host city election wasn't, something of a foregone conclusion. Everybody here seems to think that wrestling will be reinstated. It was excluded from the Olympics back in February. Since then, it's undergone something of a programme of reform and appears to have convinced the Olympic movement that it deserves to be put back in. After all, it has history on its side. It's been around since ancient Greece. It's been in the Olympics since 1896. It was seen as a huge shock when it was kicked out in February, but that seemed to be the IOC's way of saying that the sport needed to modernise, become more accessible to women, be more TV and fan friendly, and it appears to have done all those things in recent times with a new president of its international federation. So the expectancy is that in around an hour's time it will indeed be reinstated. It'll be a huge disappointment though for the other two sports, squash in particular, that's never enjoyed Olympic status, and many people believe it deserves to do so, and softball, baseball, which is perceived to be very much an American sport, but which does enjoy a lot of popularity around the world, especially with women and indeed in Muslim countries too. So both those sports have strong claims, but wrestling is almost certain to get voted in. What will be interesting is to see whether or not the new president of the IOC, and let's not forget that will be voted on Tuesday, decides that 28 sports simply isn't enough, and there needs to be perhaps a 29th, and that therefore would give hope to, for example, squash or this combined bid of baseball, softball, if indeed that is the case. Thomas Bach, the frontrunner to take over from Jacques Rogge, has suggested that he may feel that way. So even if they don't win the vote today, it's still worth squash and baseball and softball putting on a good final bid presentation and trying to convince IOC members they deserve to be reinstated in due course.
Dan, thank you.